Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric here at Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2006 crime drama action film titled Miami Vice. Now, of course, as you all know, Miami Vice, the movie, is loosely based on the classic 1980s series, which of course starred the suave and charismatic pairings of Don Johnson, who played Detective Sonny Crockett, and Anthony Michael Hall, who played the role of Detective Ricardo Tubbs. Well, this movie adaptation runs for 132 minutes long. It is written, directed, and produced by Michael Mann, along with co-producer Pieter Jan Bergy. The score was done by John Murphy and Klaus Bedelt. The cinematography was done by Dion Beebe, and the editing was done by William Goldenberg and Paul Rubel. And the stars of the movie are Colin Farrell, Jamie Foxx, Naomie Harris, John Ortiz, Gong Li, Barry Shabaka Henley, Louise Tosar, Elizabeth Rodriguez, Dominic Lamborducci, and Justin Theroux. Now, before he became a well-known director to such classic films as The Last of the Mohicans, Heat, and The Insider, director Michael Mann's very early filmography was when he served as the executive producer to one of the best crime dramas of the 1980s, which was of course the always iconic Miami Vice. I mean, Miami Vice was actually the pinnacle of the 80s. I know in the 80s they had a lot of crime drama shows like Murder, She Wrote, Heart to Heart, Cagney and Lacey, Matt Houston, Magnum P.I., Knight Rider, and so on. But it was always Miami Vice that really set the tone for classic 80s crime drama. Well, now, this crime drama adaptation has finally come to the big screen. Its classic series was handled with style and substance quite proportionately. In 2006, Michael Mann has returned to his early roots in a movie adaptation of the classic 80s series, self-evaluating what has been taught to him over the past few years since the series was cancelled in early 1990. After watching this movie, there were a few things that didn't really actually sit very well with me. And one of the many gripes I had with this adaptation to the series was that it was 2 hours and 15 minutes long. It goes on way too long. I think if they would have trimmed it to maybe an hour and 45 minutes, maybe then it would have been a lot better. I mean, there was a few scenes that could have been edited out, but I think it was because of the poor editing. This is one of the reasons why this movie did not get a high grade with me. And if that's bad enough, not only is it too long, it's also quite hard to decipher what the plot is, and at times it becomes very confusing. I mean, I've always liked simplistic crime stories that center around one plot, not too much traveling from one country to another. I mean, 1 minute Crockett and Tubbs are in one country, and then next minute they flip to another country, and then sometimes you often wonder, where are they now? It gets very muddled and very confusing at times, that it's enough to give me a migraine. And it didn't have to be like that. If they could have just stuck with one specific central story and kept the initiative in that perspective, maybe this film would have been a whole lot more better. And this is pretty much Michael Mann is easily at fault here, because he also handled the script as well. And when scenes tend to look conventional, it's handled with a complete lack of a formal standpoint. He knows exactly what scenes needs more focus and which ones need to move forward. His scripts usually go beyond sublime, but it reflects just how it reflects towards its audience. And for Mann, the performances are actually the only thing that really keeps the film intriguing. The story is convoluted, the plot is very hard to decipher, and the country jumping, like 1 minute they're in Florida, next minute they're in Colombia, next minute they're in Haiti, the next minute they're in Cuba, and it seems to happen too soon, too fast. And this really made me like wondering, what the hell is going on? Can't they just spend at least maybe 20 minutes or so in one country and then move to another? It gets really messed up at times. And the worst thing is that Mann should have known better. I mean, this is where his original roots was serving as executive producer for Miami Vice. I just didn't feel that lack of enthusiasm he did here, then compared to his responsibilities in the 80s when he was the executive producer for Miami Vice. And just like as I mentioned before, it's the characters are the ones that really keep me intrigued. I mean, I'm sure I was glad to see the old gang back. It was good to see Crockett, Tubbs. It was good to see Calabrese. It was good to see Zito, Switek, Castile. They all come back. They're all played by different actors and actresses, and it's good that they added some new characters to the script, which always makes things fascinating. Now, in the case of the leading characters, Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx, who replaced Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas in the roles of Crockett and Tubbs, they are actually not the ones that provide the best characters in this film, who replaced Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas as Crockett and Tubbs, who are, of course, in this movie are up to their dangerous anti-drug initiatives, you know, take on a group of narcotics in pursuit to take down an entire cartel, you know, in order to sort of restore peace in what is a gorgeous city but has become a threshold for a drug enterprise. I mean, at one time the glory and glamour of Miami has now become a dark, drab centerpiece for drug dealing. And of course it is Crockett and Tubbs' job to help eradicate this world of crime. But the sad part is that Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx are not the best characters in this role, in this movie. Sure, Foxx does give his all, even though his demands are far more subtle than his crime-fighting partner Farrell. Farrell just sadly can't seem to measure up to the more suave performance that Johnson provided when playing Crockett in the series. I mean, where's Jeff Bridges when you needed him? I think Jeff Bridges would have been the more ideal actor to play the role of Sonny Crockett. Where was he? And if you really wanted a good Ricardo Tubbs, I would have casted Don Cheadle anytime. I think he would have probably made a good Ricardo Tubbs. But I guess what you see is what you get, so I guess I'll have to accept it. But it's not the leading actors that hold my interest. It's actually the supporting players that are the ones that dominate, even if their screen time is much limited And they're the ones who everyone wants to see more of, but don't really get a chance to because it's practically a Farrell and Foxx movie. Barry Shabaka Henley replaces Edward James Olmos's role as Sonny Enrico's superior, Lieutenant Castillo. Castillo was of course originally played by Edward James Olmos. I have to admit that this guy, he looks very imposing and fearful. A man you simply don't want to fuck around with, because he looks like a big, scary, intimidating individual. He's the kind of guy who, if you're at a McDonald's and he wants to cut in front of you, don't give him attitude. Just let him cut in front of you and be done with it. He is not somebody you want to play around with. He is really that intimidating. But you can tell that he is the protagonist just by the look of his sensitive eyes, which shows that although he may be scary looking and intimidating, he actually does have a lot of care for his fellow detectives and also wants to look out for them as much as they can, even if their missions are excruciatingly dangerous. Meanwhile, on the other side of the law, Luis Tosar, who plays Montoya, is the polar opposite to Castillo. He is the kingpin, who of course dresses stylistically, and he's got kind of a polite manner in him, sports a beard, but once again it's the eyes that tell a different story, as he's anything but a harmless man who lives on the wrong side of the law. We can see something very disturbing about him with those cold, piercing eyes. His words of mouth about giving best regards to your family is a sign that danger is lurking about. Mann really brings the most interesting perspective into the Montoya character, the kingpin our heroes want to defeat. Now, in most movies, most of the evil characters come across as being cunning, but colorful and somewhat interesting to watch. In this movie, it's way too laid back and not very exhilarating. Montoya and his sultry girlfriend Isabella, played by Gong Li, you see them sitting in bed together with his laptop, going over the strategy of who to kill and when the time it will be done for them to strike. The feeling of discomfort comes into effect into Montoya's circle as people who are coming into the organization live an over-the-top level of perversity. Montoya's loyal stooge, John Euro, played by John Ortiz, he's a real piece of work as a grimacing, threatening, jokingly convincing evildoer. And yeah, I actually have to admit that John Ortiz, he really captured the spirit of villainy quite convincingly. He was actually quite fun to watch. But of course, you know, he was the typical antagonist that you simply are made to hate. Why? Not only because it's written in the script, because he was meant to be that way. But he was colorful and he was fun. Sometimes I've often thought the antagonists seem to be the ones to hold more of the interest than the protagonists. And here, John Euro, played by John Ortiz, he really stole the show here. He was a fine piece of work. The most noteworthy casting actually does come from Gong Li, who plays a businesswoman. She's not married to Montoya, as she claims. She is a businesswoman who feels that even though she's on the opposing end of the law, she's just trying to make a living, even if it is to shake hands with the devil himself. In this case, it's Montoya. Sure, her English is not definitely her best quality, but that's understanding. It's how she says her lines that will break you into a cold sweat. Sure, she is running a South American drug cartel, making her an outlaw, but her seductive manipulation towards Sonny is enough to make my glasses fog up from the heat. And sure, there have been several chilling female antagonists. Gong succeeds in keeping it powerful, and her only vulnerability is shown through her brief flashes. You are crazy if you mess with her mind. The story actually starts off as a sting operation situated at a nightclub, and then it turns into an undercover job going horribly bad. An informant kills himself by getting run over by a truck. And how does Mann handle the situation? While refraining from using shaky camera work or thrilling us with gore and carnage, he lets the truck move with a trail of blood paving the lines. Then we see baddies killing off people with their ammo towards people in their cars. By filming the scene, the car actually adds to a more personal touch to the film. The cinematography also goes way beyond picturesque. When the motorboat coming in from Havana, it's likely to put you in a romantic view, even if it was only for 10 seconds. There's a lot of desperate entities that's happening in Miami Vice. The scenes involving Sonny and Isabella are just steamy fillers. There's a crime story happening, but it doesn't have much going for it. And by the last minutes of the film, it doesn't hold together very well. Film critics have been overfed by this cornucopia of junk. But to see a person who knows the ins and outs of the film like this one went way overboard in self-praising himself for it. Would I have to say that it is an average film with some good things and bad things about it, and it's kind of balanced proportionately. If I was to give this movie a rating out of 10, it's definitely a 6 at the most. Well, I guess this ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening again. I'm sorry if it was a little bit long. Remember, you can subscribe to my channel. You can leave a comment. Remember, be kind, be courteous. Please refrain from being rude. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Rider saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.